Hello everyone. Today I will be talking about Ruby on Rails and Heroku, and my name is Karmangchu. So before we start with it, let's get on with the basics of how programming languages have inherited the internet society. If you browse on an internet, you will see that every platform that works on a programming language, be it be Ruby, PHP, Java, Python, and Ruby on Rails also. For example, Twitter or GitHub or Shopify, it's made using Ruby on Rails. So to get started with Ruby on Rails, I'll introduce you to the presentation topics. Starting with Ruby on Rails. What is Ruby on Rails? I'll go with the basics of gem. So what is a gem and what are its significance to Ruby on Rails? Then we'll go with creating a simple Rails application. Well, that's a application written in Ruby. And then after that, we'll look at a real life example of a Ruby on Rails application that has been already created, Redmine. This is a Ruby on Rails application. We'll look into it, and then we'll look at Heroku. And lastly, what we will do is we'll take the already created Ruby on Rails app, Redmine, and host it on Heroku. Now to get started with Ruby on Rails. So what is Ruby on Rails? Basically, you can call it Rails. It is a server-side web application framework written in Ruby. Well, in simple sentence, you can say that Rails is a platform which is written in Ruby, which will make programming much more interactive and it is much easier to understand. And like most languages that exist in the internet society, Ruby on Rails also follows the MCV pattern, that is model, view, and controller. A simple demonstration will be like a user on the internet, for example, is searching for job vacancies. So the user will go to a particular website, an official website, and then search for the vacancies of job. So what will the controller do in the website is that the specific controller used for recognizing the job vacancies will give the information to the model, which is the logic of the system, logic of the application, which will also contain the database. So the controller will ask for the database and the model will provide the database. And then at the end, that database is given to the view, which will give you the presentation of the website. And this presentation is delivered to the controller, and thus we get what we need, the job vacancies that we have been expecting. So this is a simple pattern that Ruby on Rails work, which makes programming much more organized and easier to comply with. So what is a gem? Well, it is the main core of what Ruby on Rails works on. It is the building block of Ruby on Rails. So gem, like in Java or Python, it's like libraries or packages, which is written with Ruby code, which performs a particular function. With this gem, we will be able to do many different functions like sending mail. And that gem would have code which have already been created to the purpose of sending mail. So we'll do one demonstration regarding sending mail using gem. Now, the most interesting part of the topic is hands-on. Let's create a welcome page using Ruby on Rails. For that, if you're working on Windows, I recommend using Rails installer, because this is a very flexible software which contains all the environments needed for creating a Rails application. Well, that's easy. Just click on this link and then you'll be prompted to this page where you'll have the download descriptions over here. If you download this, you'll receive Ruby version 2.3.3, 5.1, and all these benefits that are attached to this software. As an information, Ruby on Rails is strictly based on version system. Some version will not be compatible with some version, so it's very highly recommended to go through each version when you're working with a particular gem or when you're working with a particular application. So after you have downloaded this, you have to install it on your system. And if you have already installed in your system, then you can go through your desktop and check if it's working or not. So for that, what you can do is right click on your folder that you want to create a Rails application, and you'll see a Git bash over here. So you click on Git bash, and you'll see that you'll come up with this uh, screen. So this is similar with Linux command. So it's much easier to comply with. So what you can do is you can check the Ruby version by typing Ruby -v, and you will see the Ruby version that you have installed with. And if you type the Rails version here, you can see the Rails version that is when installed over here. Now, for the main part, what will happen is that we'll create a simple Rails application, and the command for it for Ruby on Rails, a platform which is very user friendly. You can use the Rails command, Rails new, give an app name. Let's say we're going to create a welcome app, and then you have to provide the database that your system will be working on. Let's say PostgreSQL. And with this, it will create your Rails application. So as I've already explained, when you create a Rails application, as Ruby on Rails support the MVC, it will create views, models, and controllers along with your file creations. Here's view, controller, and model over here. So this will take a bit of time because we have to install all the gems that are required for your files to work. For this, I've already prepared a file which will help us already prepared a simple Rails application by creating that using that command. So we'll use this application that has already been installed with the gem. So we'll go inside the file, and you'll see a bunch of files that has been created. It's auto-generated files which Rails provide for the user to work on the system. So the most important part, the building block, as I've said, is the gem file and the gem log. So Ruby on Rails focuses on these two particular functions for your application to work on a particular version. So what we will do is that we will bundle install. So what bundle install means is that the files that are present inside your gem file will all be installed inside your application and with the particular version number, and that version number will be locked inside this gem file. So if you open your favorite editor, let's see, the app that we have over here is inside on the desktop. So welcome app, just one. So if you open this, you'll see that you have gem file over here. So these are the gem files that your applications are dependent on. Gem file are libraries. And after you have bundle installed your gem file, what will happen is that all the gem libraries that are in the gem file will be locked and then been installed inside your gem log. So this is the file what your application will be using. So now let's create a simple welcome page. For that, Rails also provides a simple and effective command line for that. Just type Rails G for generate controller, like I said, MVC controller model and view. So first we have to create controller. Rails generate controller, let's say welcome, and then inside the welcome page we want an index page. So your Rails application will process this information and it will create a controller with a name welcome. And inside welcome, you'll have an index page. Not just that, it will also create a view. Okay. And then lastly, for the main part, for hosting your welcomes application on the website, you have to do this. Go inside the config folder, click on roots. Here you have to provide the root. You might have noticed that when you first go into any website, you will see a default page that's coming right after you log into the internet. So that page we have to give the root. So if you go here, you'll see that inside the application, a controller welcome has been created. And then if you go inside the view, you'll see welcome has been created and the index page that we have mentioned has been also created. So here we have a simple HTML text. Here is where you can quote your simple HTML text for presentation purpose. So after that, what you will do is uh, you go to config, you go to roots, click root, welcome, index. This is supposed to give you the main web page that you are going to present yourself when you first log in into your application. So after this has been done, all you have to do is Rails S means you want to serve your web page locally. So Rails, Ruby on Rails provide a service which helps you locally serve your web page that you have been working on to see the progress of your work. So it's like a development area. So this is the web address, localhost 3000 that your web application will be hosted on. So you can go to your web browser and then paste in the link. If you're not using a Windows application, sometimes you're not comfortable with using a Windows platform for using Ruby on Rails, you can also go for Linux distribution like Ubuntu. It also provides a variety of installers for your working in the Rails Ruby and Rails application. So after that, when you check your localhost port 3000, you'll see that your welcome page has been hosted. So that's it for hosting your welcome index. So if you want to see what's happened inside your application, see over here, we generated a controller welcome using the command, and then that command automatically created your welcome folder, and inside you have a welcome page over here, index, that had some HTML file over here. Then to make this HTML file to be visible on your web page, what we did was we went inside the root and we gave the root path over here with welcome index. Now, let's go on with the presentation. So we are done with the hands-on on creating a welcome page. Don't worry if you're not able to follow along with this tutorial, because in the next tutorial that we are going to perform, it's the main objective of our session. So Redmine, what is a Redmine? Redmine is an application web-based project management web application, which is coded using Ruby on Rails. Yes. So what we will do is we will clone this Redmine. Clone meaning we are going to download the Redmine application on our local machine, that is Windows, and then we'll set up our Redmine on Ruby on Rails so that we can host it on the Heroku application. So for that, we'll go into this website. So firstly, what you can do is on the internet, you can search Redmine on Heroku. So you can click in this link, the second one. And in this web page, it will give you the follow along of working on Redmine, which will help you use Redmine locally. So what you can do is copy this and paste it in your local machine. So paste it and you can download this. So as I've already downloaded this, I won't be downloading it again. So I'll be going inside the page that I've already downloaded. So this is the Redmine that I have downloaded using the previous link. So inside the Redmine, you'll see that the similar folders and files that has been created when we did a welcome page, right? So we have app over here, configuration setting. We have the most important part of the application, gem and gemlock over here. So with this, we can proceed with configuring your Redmine. Now, why do we need to configure the Redmine? That is the main question, right? So what we want to do with every web application that we built on the internet? Well, the answer is simple. We want to host it on the internet, right? So for that, usually what do we need? We need a domain name and a hosting plan, right? But getting a hosting plan is not very cheap. And sometimes, as this hosting plan is not cheap, and domain name is also it's not cheap. And the main advantage of hosting a web application is for cost benefit purposes or business related purposes, right? And for that, there is another platform which provides you with a similar, which not similar, with the exact amount of feature where you can host your application online. That's Heroku. So what's Heroku? Heroku is a platform. It is a platform as a service which provides or support Ruby, Java, Python, PHP, and well, many more applications that you can host on the internet. It is a cloud-based server. The working is very simple. You have an application, let's say you have a Java application and you want to host that Java application on the internet. You can just push the code in the Heroku, Heroku Cloud Server, and Heroku will maintain your application throughout its life cycle. So it's much cheaper and you have add-ons benefits with it. So to get started with Heroku, what we have to do is we have to first download this CLI for Windows. Here, you can go here. If you are on Windows, you can click here and you can download the Heroku CLI. If you're on Mac, you can paste this on your Bash terminal, or if you're on Ubuntu, you can paste this command on your terminal. So that's it. After downloading your Heroku application CLI, next you create your Heroku account. Just go to Heroku and then here. And if you already have an app account, you will be automatically logged inside your app account. But if you don't have, please create your own account for proceeding with this tutorial. So after you have a Heroku application, what we will do is you can go into your dashboard. So once you're inside your dashboard, we will create a simple application, an empty application. Let's say, give it a name. So Ruby on Rails web app. So if your name is not available, it will show you the warning, but if it's available, you can proceed by creating the application. Just click on this application. So after you have already created your application, you can go back to your dashboard and look for that application that you have already created. So now if you are done creating your application, we'll do with the final and the main part of the presentation is to host your Redmine on Heroku. So what is a Redmine? Redmine is a project management web application which is based on Ruby on Rails. It is created using Ruby on Rails, and we want to host it on Heroku so that it can be visible in the internet publicly. So let's look at the location of your Redmine that you have downloaded. It's in user, desktop, backup, and Redmine. So you can go to the location of your Redmine account and open your Redmine. Yes. So after you have opened your Redmine, first thing that you will do is go inside your configuration file. If you don't know this procedure, you can visit the internet in this link. If you go here, it will give you the entire procedure on how to host your Redmine on Heroku. You just have to follow this command lines along and addition and deletion of your files along with it, and you'll be able to host your Redmine on Heroku. Firstly, what you have to do, according to the procedures on the internet, firstly we have to do is get this things edited. As you can see, we have database.yml.example, but example is just a name prefix that has been fixed by the developer so that we can have our own database that you can create after all. And remove this example. Now you can see that the configuration.yml file and the database.yml file is de-highlighted. So why does it happen? It's very important for this procedure, because if this is de-highlighted, that means that when you push it on Heroku, what will happen is that this file will be excluded. So we don't want this file to be excluded. So what should we do? Go inside git ignore. Git ignore is a file which ignores every files that are present inside this folder, this file. So for example, we have configuration and database over here, right? So if you remove these two files, then this becomes available. So we want to send email using our system. We want secret token in session store. We want plugin assets. Well, this will be used for downloading and uploading, importing your assets, libraries. So we want that. And we don't want to exclude this because gem file is the heart of your system. After that, you can go inside your terminal and bundle install. As I've mentioned before, what does a bundle install do? Bundle install will take all the files that are present in your gem file and will transfer it into your gemlog file so that your application will use the gems that are present only in the gemlog file. So one more thing to mention is that every time you change a gem file, every time you change or edit or do something in your gem file, you always have to bundle install, because when you bundle install, the changes that has been made in the gem file will be transferred to the gemlog file over here. Well, now that all the things are installed, we are good to go. So back here, you have done with the git ignore, we have bundled. Now go to your gem file, delete this line of code. Why do we want to delete this line of code? Well, that's a very good question. Because we don't want to use this line of code, because this line of code is specially meant for using SQLite, SQL Server, and MySQL Server, and we don't want to use that. We want to use the PG for PostgreSQL. We want to use the PostgreSQL database here. So we have made a change in the gem file. So again, once more, we have to bundle install. Okay. So the gem will be bundled and it will be stored inside the gem log. Now, after this has been done, as I've mentioned in the previous presentation, in the previous session, previous presentation, before this, we are going to do a simple demonstration using gem file. We'll add a gem file and we'll see how a gem file works. So for that, let's go inside your file, Redmine file. You have database.yml file. You delete this. Now, this project will not work without its database, right? We need a database. So for creating a database, we can use a gem file. What you can do is go into your command line, as Rails provide all the necessary informations needed for you to work in a very flexible manner. So you just have to do is gem install database, and well, the gem database underscore YML will be uploaded inside your Redmine account. So we have successfully installed one gem. So what this does is that it will take the database underscore YML gem file and it will lock it inside the gem log file. Okay, so we have the gem. Now we want to use this gem. Database YML minus D for database, and specify the type of database that you want to use. So if I want to use PostgreSQL, we can do it PostgreSQL, and this database will be created. We can check this here by here. If you go here, the database.yml file has been created with the parameters to support PostgreSQL. Okay. Now, some configurations are left to be done. So one more configuration that we have to do is go inside the environment.rv file and remove this exit. The manual says that if you remove this exit one, then while deploying your app, Ruby on Rails app on Heroku, it will not give you any problems, as simple term. So after this has been done, you can go back to your command line and do git init. Git init means you're going to initialize your project, or you're going to say, now I want this particular project, the files that are present inside this particular project to be initialized. So what do I want to do with all these files that I've initialized? I want to add all the files that are present inside this folder, all these files. So where do we want to add this? This is a general question. So we want to add, are you sure? After adding, we have to be sure that we want all this file to be added. So for that, we commit. We say, we are sure that we want to commit, we want to add all of this file. So let's say it is our first commit. Okay, so where is this all added? So it is added in a Git. Git is a type of repository. You can say it is a space where you have added all your files. All these files are now stored in a virtual space called Git. So what we have to do is now we have to push this entire code which has been stored inside the Git on Heroku. And for that, we have to have a space on Heroku, right? Do you remember that we have created a Heroku app earlier on? So we are going to push the entire project inside your Heroku app. For that, you might have already created your Heroku app. So if you did not create your Heroku app, you can create it by going into your desktop dashboard. Go to personnel. Well, the limitation is 5 for basics. You can create up to only 5 application. If your limit is overflowed, you can always go to the settings and delete the app. Great. Now we can create a new app. let's say it's Ruby on Rails Redmine, right? So this name is available. So we'll create this app. Okay. If you go into your dashboard, you can see this app has been already created. So we have some questions on the YouTube saying, so for the questions that are mentioned on the comment, it will the answers will be provided shortly. So at the end of the presentation, I will go with a summary of what we did in the entire presentation. So please don't worry about missing the general idea at the beginning. So we are on Ruby on Rails, Redmine. So this is an app, empty app that has been created on Heroku. So you go to deploy. Here, it will give you the basic information on how you can deploy a basic Ruby on Rails app on Heroku. So first, let's follow this. It says Heroku login. Uh, you might know that you already should have downloaded a Heroku CLI. So if you have, all you can do is to Heroku login. Well, after that, you will be logged into your Heroku account from your terminal locally. Now, we have already Git initialized. We have already Git added. We have already Git committed with a message saying my first commit, right? So all it's left is to push your entire code on Heroku. But before that, we have to provide the remote location of the application that you have created. For that, go into your Heroku account, go inside the app that you have created, and you'll see over here, Heroku Git Remote. Copy this and paste it on your terminal. After that, you would have this, the remote location of your application. So why are we doing this? We are giving your terminal over here, this bash terminal, saying that the location, remote location, when you push anything, everything should be pushed in this app, the app that we have created earlier. So now we'll try to push the application. Git push Heroku master. This is the command for pushing the Git repository on Heroku. If you have any questions, please leave it on the comment box below. So at the end of the session, I'll be answering each and everyone's question if you have any questions. And then if you have any doubts, I'll be going through the doubts. And if you want an extra session for going through the basics again, then I would be doing if the time permits. So what's happening over here, if you look over here, is that uh, at the beginning, we did git initialize, right? So what did git initialize do? It initialized everything that was present inside the Redmine app. So every file that you see over here was initialized. And after that, we added all the files using git add, then space dot. Using this, you added every file present over here. So after you have added this file, what did we do? We committed those files, right? So after committing those files, we have added all the files in the Git repository. Commit means adding to the Git repository. So here are some errors that we'll go through and try to solve. This is a basic error that you will get when you're pushing the Redmine version that I have provided. It says the Ruby version that you're trying to install does not exist on this stack. You are trying to install Ruby version 2.3.3 on Heroku 18. Ruby version 2.3.3 is present on the following stack: Cedar 14 and Heroku 16. So this is the general error that you will get when you try to push Heroku Ruby on Rails with Ruby version 2.3.3 on Heroku 18. So the simple solution for this will be if you go inside your application folder, the application that you have created is Ruby on Rails Redmine. So if you go in the settings, you can see that the current stack that you're using is Heroku 18. It says that you're trying to push your Redmine with the Ruby version, which is not supported by this stack. So we have to provide a different stack, which is Heroku 18 or Cedar 14. So we have to change this entire app so that it can accept Heroku Cedar 14 or Heroku 16. And for that, you can go inside your terminal again and just type Heroku stack set Heroku 16. Well, you can use Cedar 14 also, but Heroku 16 is much more stable than Heroku 14, as this is already out of support. So we have to provide the app name. So our app name was Ruby on Rails Redmine. Okay, so if you go back to your application, Heroku application, and see over here, your stack has been set to Heroku system. Now you can push your code. Just do Heroku push, git push Heroku master, and it will push your code. And this time we won't get this error. So if any errors are proceeded further on, we'll go one by one and solve those errors. So when this is going on, let's review on what we did during this entire session. So what we did at the beginning and till the end. Right now, we have a Heroku application. Well, what is this? This is a cloud server which serves your Heroku application. And then you have here Ruby on Rails platform. Inside Ruby on Rails platform, you have Redmine. So Redmine is stored inside Ruby on Rails. Now, after you have successfully hosted your Redmine on Heroku, the thing that you have to know about Heroku is that Heroku is a very diverse and flexible platform where it supports add-ons. You need a database, right? If you go inside your application that I have already mentioned before, you have already created a database over here. So database with PostgreSQL. So that means you're trying to create a database with PostgreSQL on your production server, that is Heroku. So we need a PostgreSQL database on Heroku. So for that, you can go to your personal account and go to resources. And as you can see, you don't have any add-ons. You can click on find more add-ons and type PostgreSQL. And install it inside the application that you want to have this add-ons on. And here you have an add-ons, Heroku Postgres on your Ruby on Rails Redmine. Now you have a database over here. So inside the Heroku server, you have PostgreSQL. Well, this is an add-on. So this is the entire procedure what we did. We downloaded Redmine and we configured the Redmine which works on Ruby on Rails platform. And we have an add-ons PostgreSQL. So the database that are inside the Redmine will use the add-ons PostgreSQL to uh, render all the data that are present inside the Redmine. And these are all done inside the Heroku Cloud Server. So if you go back to the terminal, well, it's still going on. Writing object means it's uploading, uh, it's confirming the files that it want that has to be uploaded on Heroku. So after that, It will install all the gem files that is inside the gem log on Heroku. So this was something that did not uh, work in the previous push because of this version issue. But now we don't have any issues over here because we have changed the stack to Heroku 16. Great. Now we are done. Finally, we are done in hosting Redmine on Heroku. Now let's see if it works or not. All you have to do is click on Open App. Click here. And the first thing that you will see is that your app is not working. Application error. Because we left out few things for your applications to work. Firstly, what you have to do is you have to push the databases that are present inside your Redmine to Heroku. So if you go inside the DB folder, you'll see migrate. Migrate. It has all the tables, data that the Redmine should have for it to function normally. So if you don't have these databases, your Redmine on Heroku will not work. So you have to push everything that's in here on Heroku. So Heroku provides a very simple function to push those database on Heroku. Heroku run detached db migrate. So what it's doing is that it's going inside your, firstly, it's borrowing the Heroku command line, which is on your Heroku app on the web browser in your account, and it's trying to perform a function that's inside the DB folder. We have a migrate file to, we are trying to read the DB and migrate it on the Heroku account. So after this has been done, you can see if it works or not by just copying and pasting this. Here. All the tables that existed inside your migrate file has been now been transferred to the Heroku account, Heroku application. So now let's see if our app works. All you can do is refresh. And then we have the same error. Why do we have that? Because currently your application is not recognized, or say that there is security issue. The cookies that are present inside on the web browser is not recognizing your applications. So for the validation and for security purpose, what we have to do is we have to create a secret token for your Rails application. So for that, you can go in your command line and do rake generate secret token. So this You might be seeing that I've used rake many times. What does a rake do? Well, it's a simple function which is used for running your code that are present inside your Ruby and Rails in real time. If you have a particular code that you want to run, you can use rake function. So, but rake function also has its own functionality. It works under certain conditions. So after you have raked, you can git add. So any changes that you have made to the code, you always have to update it in your Git repository. So it's our second commit. Any message is fine. So now git push Heroku master. Now it's done. Let's move into our application. Here, now we have Redmine on Heroku. So let's do something like change this name, Redmine, to something else. So for that, let's go into Sublime and open your configuration file. Go to settings. So here you say app title default is Redmine. Let's put it Ruby on Rails Redmine. Save it. Add any changes that has been made inside your code. You have to follow these lines. First, you have to add commit. Let's say changed Redmine title. Now push. Okay. Time stop. 11:30 So you can refresh your Redmine application. And here the name has been changed. So this is it for the entire presentation. We started firstly on the introduction of Ruby on Rails. We did a simple introduction of what is Ruby on Rails. We discussed about gem. We created a simple application using Rails, and we looked at we had a hands-on. We created a welcome page using Ruby on Rails. Then we looked on Redmine. So Redmine was a project management web application. So we downloaded the code and we hosted it on our personal account on Heroku. So this is the entire procedure what's happening. So we have a cloud server, Heroku. Now cloud server. So You can give this URL over here. So this is our application location. Then we did a Redmine. We downloaded Redmine, and Redmine is supported on Ruby on Rails. And inside your Heroku application, you have add-ons, which is PostgreSQL. So thank you for participating on the presentation and introduction on getting started on Ruby on Rails and Heroku. So the questions that are posted on the comments, I will answer the questions individually. And the first question is uh, introduction on Ruby on Rails. Please kindly repeat on Ruby on Rails. Okay. So what is Ruby on Rails? As in the beginning, I'll be explaining from the very basic. In the internet society, if you go into the internet, everything that you will see is the building block of the result of thousands of developers working on programming languages. If you visit a particular website, you'll see that that website is used or made by using a particular programming language, be it Python, be it be PHP, be it be a platform which supports those programming languages like Django, be it be WordPress, and many things. And likewise, Ruby on Rails also support web applications like Twitter, like Shopify, so and like GitHub. So these are the applications built on Ruby on Rails. So what is Ruby on Rails? Ruby on Rails or Rails is a server-side web application framework written in Ruby. So basically Ruby is the programming language and Rails is the platform which supports Ruby. So Rails help in efficient and flexible working of Ruby for us to code in Ruby programming language. So like most programming languages, Ruby on Rails also uses the MVC pattern. M is model, V is view, C is controller. So the basic analogy would be like you are visiting a website and you are searching for a particular group of animals, like you want to search for panda. So you are the user over here, you are on the internet, and now you are inside a particular web browser. You type on the search button or you click a button saying panda. And what happens is that the controller, which is responsible for handling the particular command panda, will send the signal to the model. Model is used for the logical background of the entire programming language, and it also it manages the database. So it will go inside a database and bring out the panda lists of panda and give it back to the controller. So the controller will give that data to the view, and this view will take the data and then give it a simple GUI presentation, and this presentation will be given back to the controller and controller will show it back to you. So you'll have the result at the end of what you have desired. So this is the entire process of what's happening. So model, view, and controller. This is a simple pattern which helps in understanding Ruby on Rails and the flexibility and the arrangement which is made so that the programming is made easier. So gem, what is a gem? Gem is a library which is made using Ruby code for performing a particular function. Like you create a particular code. So first you create a particular code or you code in gem, you code in Ruby on Rails, Ruby, then you have the particular code and you upload it on the internet as a gem. So other people will use the gem, right, inside your code. So gem is the building block of Ruby on Rails. So then it was hands-on, right? To create how to create a Ruby on Rails application. So if you are on Windows, what you can do is click on this website and click here to download. And then after that, what you can do is you can open your terminal and type Rails new and the application name. Let's say test1. Then provide the database. -d is for database, and you can provide MySQL or PostgreSQL. So if you want to provide PostgreSQL, and then next enter. So your application will be created. I hope this answers the question about the basics of what a Ruby on Rails is. So there is one question saying, what are the basic differences between coordinator and Ruby on Rails? Well, as I've mentioned before, Ruby on Rails is a open source web framework. The usage is basically for the developers to sustain productivity, and Coordinator Coordinator is an open source PHP framework. So it is for the developers which are interested in full featured web development services. And if there isn't any question left, and this is the end of this session, and thank you for participating.